All right, buddy. We're here for a special episode of the Rehashables podcast. Me and you just both finished The Penguin, and we were so fired up about it that we decided to kind of record an emergency kind of mid-month podcast, breaking it down, going over all the highlights. Are you ready to go?
So ready to go. The second I ended the series, I wanted to call you and just start recording immediately because I was just so fired up and haven't had a feeling like that after a show finished in quite some time.
I was trying to think back to the last show that did that for me. Does anything come to mind for you? I don't know if you've given that any thought. What was the last show that you felt this way about?
Watchmen. The last show.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah,
wow.
That's the last show. I mean, Station 11 I think was maybe close, but Watchmen was the one where I needed to at the end take a walk and process everything and be and just know what I was watching was unbelievable and great and rare. That would be the last show I got when watching this feeling, which is a huge surprise, because what were your expectations just about the Penguin in general?
Before I get to that, I do want to say that Watchmen was the last one for me too. And it's funny that you said that, and we haven't talked about that at all, but I was thinking back, Watchmen was awesome. Every episode was great, well acted. Damon Lindelof's show on Max, or on HBO at the time. You could probably watch it on Max, but very underrated show that if you're listening to this and you want something else to watch, go back and watch Watchmen. That was a freaking awesome show.
Absolutely. 100%.
So my expectations are, I didn't have high expectations. I really enjoyed the Batman movie. We actually talked about the Batman for me on the Rehashables at one point. That trailer got me the first time I saw it for the Batman. I knew I wanted to see it. It took me a little while to see it. Loved it. But then it's okay, yeah, Penguin was an interesting character in that, played a pretty small role. They're doing a spinoff, okay, but plenty of movie universes do spinoffs nowadays to varying levels of success. So it's yeah, I'll check it out, but it didn't take long. I think the first episode came out and people were this is good. And I probably started towards the tail end of the whole thing. I might have even started after the whole thing finished, or maybe a week or two to go. But by that point, the hype had built up a ton.
Yeah.
To the point where we were.
Absolutely. And I went back and I actually went on YouTube. The Penguin in Batman he was on screen, I think, for 13 minutes in the whole movie. He really was a character. And I remember when that came out, it was okay, Colin Farrell's playing this guy. That's wild. You know what I mean? And that's cool. He's not even the main villain of the movie, but it's cool that, they had to have his name to do this. And obviously seems like a lot of work for the prosthetics and the makeup and the suit. You have Colin Farrell, probably one of the better looking guys in Hollywood, be the Penguin. And I went back, it was 13 minutes, and he had some good moments. That car chase scene was really awesome, and when they interrogated him was awesome. He was funny and memorable. But same thing as you, I was I'll watch it, I'll get around to it. But then I think episode 1, 2, 3 came out, and then I believe it was when episode 4 came out, people literally on the internet were this show has no right being as good as it is. Yeah. And that's when the momentum kind of got more on our radar, and then binged it to the end.
Yeah, I put aside everything that I was watching at the time to okay, now I'm going to watch The Penguin to completion. I was hoping to catch it live the night that it aired, but I think I was a few days behind. But it ended in the past couple of weeks, so it's definitely still very much in the moment. All right, if you've been enjoying the podcast, I wanted to let you know that I am a residential loan officer with CMG Home Loans. If you or anyone you know is looking to buy a home or refinance, please let me know and I'd be happy to help. My contact information is in the description below. Back to the podcast. Still haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It's incredible. Funny to say that the Penguin was only on screen for 13 minutes in the Batman. I mean, that's what it feels like. He was definitely bottom list of the villains, but they were obviously laying the groundwork for this, maybe for future movies. They casted Colin Farrell, like you said, which is an insane freaking casting for this role. If anyone that's watching this, you've watched The Penguin, dude, you would never know that that's Colin Farrell there. I was watching it in bed with Tara, and I'm like, hey, do you know who that actor is that plays that guy? She had no freaking clue. And when I told her it was Colin Farrell, I was like, what? It's insane.
It's literally, and it's such a good show when you're watching it, and 95% of the time I forget it's him. I think Oswald Cobb is a real person. I think that actor, that guy, I'm seeing on screen that isn't Colin Farrell, it's that's a real person. And then I'm like, holy cow, that's that's Colin Farrell, which says so much about his acting performance and how they portrayed it. But yeah, I mean, Batman was a 3-hour movie. It was a long, long, long movie. So Matt Reeves, who's kind of building this universe, everything I've heard or read, like, it wasn't like they had this grand plan. They just brought really good people on, and things just kind of, deviated. And the showrunner, I forget her name, but she was the main writer and the showrunner, and came up with this amazing story. And yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, maybe when they saw Colin Farrell's performance, they were like, we got something with this performance. Like, let's offshoot this. And I'm a sucker for cinematic universes, so I think you are too. So if there's a show that we really like and they start doing spin-offs, kind of like The Boys or Breaking Bad, there's a million little universes that have offshoots to them. And I was here for it. So plan today is I want to go through each episode. There's only 8 episodes, so nothing crazy. Talk about some of the highlights, because I actually think every episode was very good. Had some great cliffhangers, had some great moments. I think we have our favorites. Talk about that, some of the highlights, and just kind of dig in, recap, deep dive, whatever you want to call it, and just relive this fun season of TV.
I completely agree. And getting onto that just really quick, because I've been, like you, I have not stopped thinking about this, and this is kind of a good segue into episode 1, is I tell people, I've been telling everybody about this show. Hey, have you watched The Penguin? And they're like, The Penguin? And I'm like, yeah, The Penguin, like from like Batman? And I'm like, yeah, but like, I was like, yeah, but I'm like, just watch the first episode. It has nothing to do with superheroes. It is, and you can tell in episode 1, they just create this awesome, gritty, realistic universe that it's not like nothing to do with Batman. And they really kind of set that realism right off the bat. So
if you're definitely thinking like, oh my God, I'm in for a Batman show, now you're probably more in for like a Sopranos type show or a mobster type show with some mystery in there and interweaving storylines and all that stuff. Like, if you're into that, like, this is a good show for you. It has nothing to do with Batman, although it's set in the Batman universe. So with that said, you ready to talk about episode 1?
Let's go. Dive in.
So this episode is called After Hours, and it's obviously just laying the groundwork for the season. You reintroduce the Penguin. The time frame for this episode takes place like within a week of the happenings of the Batman, right? Just to recap that, the Riddler blew some walls that kind of kept the sea in from Gotham, blew that up at the end of the episode, created a bunch of flooding. So you're in this world of flooding, chaos, crime, even more than usual. So it's kind of the backdrop. Like, what are some of the big things that happen in that episode outside of the very end? Anything come to mind for you?
Well, I love the opening. You know what I mean? Because it was a great, like, recap of the Batman. So it's like, you don't need to have seen the Batman to watch this show. They recap like what's going on and what the scenario is within the first 3 minutes. They do a fantastic job through news stuff and that kind of thing. So number one thing I always realized, and kind of got this from the Batman, Gotham, not a fun place to live. Doesn't seem like a fun place. Doesn't seem like a safe place. Very corrupt. So they did a really good job in that episode of like bringing you in Gotham, being like, God, this is a tough place to live, and crime is very rampant and that sort of stuff. So I thought Gotham was really, really cool how they kind of just built that atmosphere right off the bat. I thought with like it literally everything being in disarray.
Yeah, Gotham sucks. It's not a great place, and it honestly never really has been. And I'm amazed that it's a place that is like supposed to be mirrored off of New York City. But
yeah, like, would you rather live in Gotham or the town in 7, the city in 7? It's like literally like the two of the worst places to go. But it sets you off, and just again, like right away, the number one thing out of that episode that I thought, and it kind of goes to Colin Farrell's performance, is just the Penguin. He's so good at like talking himself out of things. You know what I mean? He's such a talker and can get himself out of any situation. And the way he was, where it's our first introduction to his side character, Vic, who end up meeting by Vic and a group of his friends are trying to hijack his car, the Penguin's car, and take his rims. And the Penguin stops him and, long story short, uses Vic for some stuff, and then kind of ends up being his partner in crime through the season. So it was a good job of introducing these characters and where the show is going to go, and then obviously introducing the biggest character besides the Penguin in the show, Sophia, which I'm sure you want to talk about.
She in the first episode?
Yep. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'll have to refresh what her role is in that first episode, but further laying the groundwork, at the end of the Batman, their big crime boss, Carmine Falcone, was killed, right? So, and he has a couple kids, and those are the people that play big roles in this show. There's Alberto, his son, Sophia, his daughter, and then the whole family, which we'll kind of get into. But the big thing that happens at the end of episode 1, and I didn't personally see this coming, is the Penguin having this conversation with Alberto Falcone, who's basically taking over for Carmine, kind of a mess, always like into drugs, and ultimately the Penguin shoots him unexpectedly. Like, I did not see that coming. Shoots him, kills him, right? Because he was going to be in business for him. Penguin worked for Carmine Falcone. What did Alberto say that made him decide to shoot him?
He basically was like to the Penguin. So the Penguin is, he's like deformed. He's a gimp. He has a deformed leg and a leg brace. He walks like a waddle, which is kind of how, you know, he gets the name the Penguin. He's got scars all over his face. He's big, so he's not like a good looking, he's charismatic, but definitely like a sleazy kind of guy. Yeah. And he's telling a story to Alberto about like this gangster that he looked to up growing up, who when he died, the whole city like shut down and honored him. And Alberto was like, wait a minute, that's what you want. That's what you want. And he's like, you will never get that. You will never be loved. You will never be revered. You are a nobody. You are the Penguin. And basically, calling the Penguin, calling Oz the Penguin is the equivalent of calling Marty McFly chicken. Because
that's what I was gonna say. He just can't help himself. He freaking hates it. He has like a visceral reaction to be calling the Penguin, and he freaking shot him. Killed him.
And he shot him, and he lost his temper. And then the whole episode is him trying to get rid of the body and that sort of stuff. And then so midway through is when you get introduced to Alberto's sister, Sophia, and she just got out of Arkham, which is famously Gotham's prison and mental institution, basically. And you got out, and immediately the actress that plays her, Cristin Milioti, she steals the screen. The second you see her on screen, she has this presence of this like mysterious, what is her deal? They call her the Hangman. She's like immediately a badass and sets the tone. And then she wants to kind of know what happened to her brother and if the Penguin killed him or not.
Awesome first episode. Great intro to all these characters. Like you said, the actress that plays Sophia is incredible. I mean, we talk about how good Colin Farrell is in his role, and you kind of get lost in what he is doing on screen. But I mean, man, she is right there with him. Like, those are two great performances, and those people just kind of go back and forth throughout the whole series. So that's episode 1, After Hours. Awesome start. Like, definitely not one of those ones where it's a slow burn. Like, it starts off hot and then just kind of keeps going from there. Next one, episode 2, is called Inside Man. Sophia's digging a little bit more about Alberto's death, right? And what comes to mind for that one?
Well, that one you get to meet the other family. Is it the Maronis, right? The other gangster family.
Yeah. So it's the Maronis versus the Falcones. Yeah, Falcones. Yeah.
It was between those two and that sort of stuff. So Sophia at the end, going back really quick though, into episode 1, because it ended on a bang with basically Sophia was questioning the Penguin, had a gun to his head, was about to kill him. They're at Sophia's house, and all of a sudden a car crashes into their house. Sophia goes out, opens the trunk. Alberto's in there with his pinky finger chopped off, which is a Maroni kind of symbol of what they do. So, and then we find out that the Penguin had Vic do that, and that's how he got out of that situation. So Sophia thinks the Maronis are all over it. Penguin got out of this sticky situation again, and that was kind of how that happened. And you learned like, oh, Vic is now becoming like a pretty awesome guy. So with episode 2, you've learned more about the relationship between the two gangster families, and Oz, the Penguin, kind of playing both sides.
Yeah. What he did with getting Vic to crash that car and show Alberto's body in the back, that's what Penguin does. Like, that's where he thrives. Like, piecing those things together and getting out of a situation that you think he's basically screwed in. Yeah.
It's like a Breaking Bad formula, or like any like good formula where you're like, how the hell is like Walter White going to get out of this situation? There's no way. He's up against the wall. I see no way of him getting out. And every time the Penguin does, and in this one as well. One, though, quick shout out to the guy that plays Sal Maroni. Awesome, that guy. He's awesome, that guy. But his wife, what is she from?
I have no idea who his wife is.
That is Dina Arez from season 4 of 24.
Oh, I thought you meant his wife in real life.
No, his wife on the show.
I know who his wife is. Yeah, for sure. She's, I believe, Iranian. You would recognize her. As much as his name's Clancy Brown. He was in Shawshank. He's in a bunch of different stuff.
Yep.
He is that guy. She is that girl. Like
absolutely on everything she's in. And Dina Arez from season 4 of 24, which is one of the best season of 24. Awesome character. So it was great to see her and her voice, her raspy like voice.
She has you could hear her voice and know exactly who it is. So you'll know that girl when you see her.
Awesome. She's awesome. Anyway, I wanted to just give a shout out to her.
But Penguin just kind of strolls into, I think it's called Blackstone. Is it Blackstone?
Where he is.
Yeah. It's like the prison. Arkham is the mentalist asylum or sane asylum, and Sal Maroni's in the prison. He just kind of strolls in and he gets to like sit down and kind of talk to everybody. He has the ring from Alberto, gives it to him. I don't know. It's a little bit of a stretch.
I will agree. There's a lot of people in this room that are hearing him say that he killed Alberto, and like that could very easily get back to Sophia. I thought that. So
and what, anyone could just walk into this prison and talk to? It's like,
very, very low.
Don't get me wrong. It's not a criticism. It's just one of those things like, okay, suspension of disbelief just when you're watching a TV show. But Penguin kind of owns it. So I'm trying to think of where this episode ends because I don't want to spend.
I remember
on each episode.
Yeah. So the episode ends there at a party at the Falcone Manor, let's call it, their big house and stuff. And Sophia has somebody in the basement from the Maroni family who knows about who killed Alberto and all that sort of stuff. So what ended up happening was Sophia was going to talk to the guy, and Oz basically kills him before he can talk. And they know that he's dead, and they know whoever killed him did it with a knife. So they have everybody who's at the house line up, and whoever has the knife is the one that killed him. And the Penguin makes pretend he gets in a little scuffle, puts the knife in one of the guards.
It's so obvious. It's like
an obvious move. And then when they find it, the head of the Falcone family, her uncle, not Sophia, ends up shooting the guy in the head. And again, Oz is 2 for 2 for getting out of situations where you think he's screwed.
2 for 2, like an impossible situation to get out of. He gets out of it. Ballsy move to go kill the guy in the basement because it's like anyone could be coming in there at any given moment.
That wasn't the plan, though. Again, it wasn't the plan. Was Vic was supposed to plant some jewels in Vita's car.
Yeah.
Doug from House of Cards, Johnny
Vita. That guy. Great, that guy.
Awesome, that guy. And,
so what else is he in? He's in other stuff.
He is, but House of Cards was his claim to fame. Doug was a good character in House of Cards.
It's a very bad look to him.
He definitely doesn't. I don't think he could ever be in a rom-com or something. He has that kind of look to him.
If he's in a movie or show, he's like the bad guy.
He's like the second bad guy. He's a great number 2, which he is in this show too. And so Penguin had to kind of think on the fly, and he decided to kill him and do it and got out of the situation. So they thought Sophia's all right, we got the guy. So they're not looking at Oz anymore as the guy that killed Alberto.
Mm-hmm. How's this one end again?
That one. That's
how it ends.
That's how it ends. Yep.
Okay.
They kill the guy, and Oz, Oz is burying the bodies, and he teaches Vic a lesson, and has Vic lay down with the dead bodies because he didn't get out of it and that sort of stuff. So
I want to take a moment to talk about digging graves in TV shows. I've probably said this before. I will always say it. There is no way in hell they dug that deep of big of a grave.
8 feet.
If I have to go plant a flower that is this big in my garden, I'm freaking exhausted by digging the hole that goes around to it, right? They gotta stop making these freaking people dig these graves and act like it's even possible to dig more than freaking 4 inches into the ground. So anyways, that was a hell of a grave they dug.
Unbelievable. There's 8 feet, 2 bodies in there. Yeah, it would have taken literally 2 days of work to do that. So that's hilarious.
Sure. Anyways, great job.
Yep.
Digging that grave. Next episode, it's called Bliss.
Yep.
Getting a little introduction to plot device that kind of plays a big role throughout the rest of the season, and it's this drug that Sophia has access to some mushrooms from Arkham, and they put it into a drug form, and they're wanting to sell it, right? So we had some meetings from there.
Yeah, that was great. That was awesome. And this one, the one thing that stands out for me for this one, even getting before Bliss, is you kind of get Vic's backstory a little bit, the opening of this, pre-floods and stuff, and it shows you what Crown Point is. And Crown Point is a borough in Gotham that's low income, hard-working families, very blue-collar place that is because it's the lowest part of the city. When the levees broke from the Riddler and the Batman, it got washed out, and hundreds, maybe even thousands of people died, including all of Vic's family. So you get a story about that, and you just kind of realize like Crown Point, not bad people, like not like gangsters, not like crime, just like hardworking
class
people that the city kind of forgets about afterwards, and they're the last ones to get taken care of, which plays a role into why people end up being so loyal to the Penguin. So I thought it kind of just was a good like setup of Crown Point and stuff leading into that before getting to Sophia and the Penguin's very short partnership of trying to get Bliss out in the market and start this new drug and take over the town.
Yeah, that was a great opening backstory for Vic, because at first I'm just like, okay, what am I watching? And then you see the fireworks going off and you kind of understand a little bit of what's going on, and it's like, oh man, we're watching the backstory and we're watching his freaking family die, and he could have easily been in there. So that was great, man. Vic's awesome character, so we'll keep talking about
awesome actor, great character. Yeah,
awesome actor. Yeah, seems like a good dude. But yeah, so Penguin and Sophia meet up. They're going to sell this drug. They're trying to get, I forget the guy's name. It's the Asian
Zhao Zhou or the Xylo, or
the head guy is that guy too.
Yeah, well, he's Dr. Chang or whatever from Dharma, the head of Dharma Initiative.
Wait, that's exactly who that is. That's so funny. I'm like, I freaking know that guy, and that's what he's from too. So they are obviously trying to. What happens? They meet up. They try to like position that, but like the end of the episode is where they get confronted, right?
Confronted by Dina Arez, not not her, but the Maroni family is like Oz double crossed them and all that sort of stuff. So right when things again were going well for Oz and Sophia, the Maroni wife comes out and has a gun to her head. But the biggest revelation of this one is while she has her gun to Oz and Sophia's head, she spills out the revelation that Oz did kill Sophia's brother Alberto. And that is where shit kind of hits the fan. And there was this moment in this episode where Vic left, and Vic was going to leave. Vic had the opportunity to leave with his girlfriend to go to California. At the bus stop, he told her he was going to go. He told her he was going to be there. Oz said it was his decision. Didn't hold it, like, literally, like, kind of held a gun to his head, but said he could go if he wanted to. And Vic, at the last second, made the decision not to go, to stay in Gotham, to stay with Oz. And as he's driving back to the club, that's when he sees Oz and Sophia on their knees at gunpoint. And Vic comes through yet again, saves Oz, and runs over the guy that had the gun to his head. Oz gets in the car. Mm-hmm. And the big tell from this one, Vic is like, should we wait for Sophia? And Oz is like, nope. Get out of here. And they drive off.
So you know that after that, it's like, okay, like you said, shit's going to hit the fan. Like, Sophia knows they're ditching Sophia. Like, where the hell could we possibly go from here that, they can get through this or get past this? So great cliffhanger, which leads us into what I think would probably be like my favorite episode of the season. We could talk more about that. I don't know what your favorite one is.
100%.
I don't know how to pronounce this. Did you see the title of this episode?
No, no.
It's Saint-Annie, and I don't know exactly what it means. But this episode focuses on Sophia. It's a Sophia episode. And because the way that last episode ends, it's really like, how are you going to pick up where this leaves off? But you kind of don't even revisit that right away. It starts with Sophia pre-Arkham, pre-anything that's happening in present day. She's just the daughter of a mob boss. And, I mean...
But fairly normal, thinks she's doing good, like knows shit that's going on in the family, but like runs the foundation for, battered women and like dresses very
normal,
elegant, normal, not as eccentric and awesome as she does after Arkham.
But they have found this foundation is for what, abused women or for women, and basically because her mom hung herself, and she walked in on that when she was a child, and her and her dad created this foundation and helping women, all that stuff. So like the opening of the episode is her talking to some people, and they're kind of getting some sneers and snickers as she's talking about different things. And I think people kind of know what Carmine Falcone's all about. But that's how it begins. So you just kind of see that world. And then we transition, correct me if I'm wrong, but then we, what is it that kind of sparks some doubt for her? Oh, a reporter reaches out to her.
Yep.
And talks about some women that were hung that worked at Carmine Falcone's nightclub, and plants that kind of seeded doubt about what happened to her mom. Did she really kill herself? Is this all connected? And it kind of goes from there when she goes back home.
Well, the biggest thing that this is kind of where you get the feud, and you got to think about it, is Oz is Sophia's driver. So correct. Oz and Sophia are very, very, not very close, but they're definitely like, she's basically, he's her Vic, essentially. You know what I mean? Like he's her driver, confidant, knows where she's going. She tells him things, so they're kind of a pair. So when she goes to talk to this journalist, the big thing in the Falcone family is you do not talk to a journalist. Even though she didn't give really anything to the journalist and told her, kind of walked away, Oz saw her talking to this. And this is where the big divide happens, is Oz tells Sophia's father and betrays her and stuff.
So they're in like a party. Yep. And he calls her into his office.
He, as in her dad. Yep.
Yeah, he is in her dad. And Carmine Falcone was played by John Turturro in the movie, and they recasted some other guy. Actually, thought they did a pretty nice job. You kind of forget that it was John Turturro. He's got his dark glasses on, a little mustache, and a good recast. Shows that you can recast somebody, and it's not really that big of a deal. But anyways, brings her into the office, and she basically like lets him know what she thinks. Like, not directly saying it, but, questions what happened. She won't tell anyone, all that stuff. And he is not happy. He's not happy. And she leaves the party and gets pulled over while Oz, or the Penguin, is driving her, and the police take her to Arkham from there. And that's all the result of the Penguin telling him that she met with the journalist and their conversation, and he's just going to get rid of her.
And if you watch it again, when the cops are pulling her over and Oz gets out of the car, he's putting on like a show. Like, he knew this was going to happen. And he's like, what's going on here? This is crazy. Oh, she didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here? And he's like getting out in the car. But you can tell, like, in his eyes, like, he very much was aware this was going to happen. He knows that she's going to jail because of him. And it was his way of moving up in the world. And that was his step to get closer. So where you see him in the Batman when he's running the clubs and all that sort of stuff, that is while Sophia is in Arkham. And she's supposed to be in Arkham for 6 months. For 6 months to go there. And when you go to Arkham, she's being studied by these doctors. And these doctors are already being paid by Carmine Falcone to keep her in prison, making her act like she's crazy. And it's devastating to watch because it's such a helpless feeling because there's nothing she can do. The only person that comes to visit her is her brother Alberto, which shows why she's so devastated when he gets killed. There was a list of, and which will come into play, of a bunch of her family members writing letters to the judge saying she was mentally unfit, insane, when she clearly wasn't. So she was betrayed by literally everybody.
Her whole family. And that's 6 months.
Yeah.
That 6 months went from 6 months to 10 years.
Yeah. They never let her out.
Carmine Falcone was the person that killed all those women, including Sophia's mother, and hung her. And she was blamed for all of those things, and that's where she got the name Hangman from, the Hangman. And the truth is, like, the Hangman was her dad. But in there, she's the Hangman. Throughout the show, she's referred to as the Hangman, but, like, she didn't do anything. Like, she didn't do anything. And so it's, like, heartbreaking. Like, it truly was, like, heartbreaking to watch how bad it was in Arkham, and the people around her, and just the treatment that she gets, the electric shock stuff, the gaslighting to her. Like, it was dire in there.
And she comes out of Arkham as she basically takes on the persona of the Hangman. Even though
when she sees people, she's the Hangman to them. And they're uncomfortable.
Yeah, it makes people uncomfortable, even though she's not, but she's now taking on this persona. She's a changed person that was wronged by freaking everybody, and the only person that was nice to her is dead. And she is out for vengeance, and she comes out as a badass, and she scars all her neck, her arm, and does not give a fuck about anything, and is a real badass, which kind of goes into what the next thing is, because her family honestly wants to get rid of her. They're basically like, here's a plane ticket to Italy. We don't want you around anymore. If you don't go, we'll make you go, or people will be sleeping with the fishes. And basically, was really left with an ultimatum or so. And she decided to act and did something which was one of the more jaw-dropping moments in TV recent history that I can think of I did not see coming and was an unbelievable sequence, if you want to dive into that.
Totally, yeah. So I mean, the end sequence of this episode it starts with a dinner party where they're all there. Johnny Vitti just basically told her to jump on that plane, and she's there. She's kind of a mess. She has her glass of wine that's like filled up to the tippity top, you know, big, solid pour, and she's basically like letting her family have it and talking about how they wronged her and all that stuff. And there was I think her cousin daughter was at the table, sent her daughter away so she could finish up this talk, but you didn't really know where it was going to go from here. Like, she obviously had a lot of feelings towards her whole family. I think what happens is it moves to like the nighttime and she's sleeping with that little cousin in.
She gets her out.
Gets her out. Yeah. Puts her in this like garden type sunroom kind of place. Mm-hmm. Away from the house. What was that?
A greenhouse. Yeah, it was a greenhouse. Yep.
Yeah. So puts her there, sleeps with her, and then basically goes back into the house in the morning. And what you see is that she like messed with the heating system and what was it, carbon monoxide, mm-hmm. basically like killed every single person in the whole house. But the way it was filmed was great because it was just kind of like her legs walking around from room to room. She'd open the door, people would be like laying dead in their bed or off the floor. And she'd go open up the windows, and then the one person that she didn't kill was Johnny Vitti. Doug from House of Cards went there, and did it end with like their conversation about how?
Yeah, it was a gun to her head, and like we gotta talk or something like that. But like going quick back to the scene in the night where she goes to get her not niece but her little cousin or whatever. She's got to be what 8, anywhere between Ellie and Aubrey's age, probably 8 to 10 years old, 8 to 12. And it's so unsettling because you know something bad is going to happen, but you're like, what is she going to hurt this little girl, or like what is going to happen? And then when she doesn't, and we'll get to her because they do cross that bridge later. But my one question is, and I've been trying to like, did Johnny Vitti leave his window open and got lucky that he lived, or did she leave his window open and had intention for him to live?
I personally thought that she had intention for him to live.
Okay,
because she was gonna leverage that relationship somehow. So anyways, I could be wrong on that, but I don't know that there's a clear definitive answer besides what I think.
And it goes into the next episode, which is reason why, she needed him and stuff like that. But this was the episode when the show catapulted from, this is a really great show to be like, I'm watching something very special. So awesome.
Awesome performance. Like, you really like cements her as a great character in TV, and honestly, like, that performance hopefully gets her an award when it comes to that time of year.
100%.
Next episode 5, Homecoming. We're cruising right along. It's probably an hour pod when it's all said and done. Homecoming. Does it pick up at the end of what happened with Oz and Vic going away, or does it pick up right at the house where the police are there and they're talking about everyone that it was a big story. I forget which one went first, but you do have to deal with some of the aftermath of what she did, and she kind of talked her way out of that. Cops are there. Meanwhile, Johnny Vitti's tied up in the mausoleum.
Yep.
Right. And she's going to deal with him later on. But then you kind of take off. You see where Oz and Vic were, and they kind of take off from that scene before. So where did it kind of go from there?
I want to start mostly with the Sophia stuff because it was good when the police officer went there. It ended up being the chief who ended up going, and basically they kind of had this side conversation where she's like, "You kind of came a far way out here for this conversation. What do you really want?" And basically what ended up happening was he wanted to make sure he and his men, I guess, were still getting payments from the Falcone family in order to get paid off and keep the corruption going. So it just was a little way of showing how corrupt Gotham was and how the Falcone family, no one could really stop them, even though, 10 people were just murdered and it was an accident, there was only 2 survivors type stuff. So the stuff that she ended up doing with Johnny Vitti and what she needed from him was cash. And she knew her dad had a bucket of cash or a bunch of cash around. Where was the pile of cash? And basically, he ends up saying and talks his way out of it like, I will be your number 2. Like, you can run this family, but you need to have respect. People need to respect you, and I can show you that respect. I can get that respect for you. So he ends up becoming number 2, and then they end up having a scene at the table where all the henchmen come in, the nobodies, and she gives this incredible speech basically saying that she's changing her name from Falcone to Gigante, which is her mother's maiden name, basically destroying the Falcone family, throws this wad of cash saying, you guys have been wronged. You've not been paid. My father has been taking advantage of you. My uncle's been taking advantage of you. And Vidi's like, wait a minute here. That's not true. We got some things we got to settle. And Sophia Gigante takes out her gun, boom, shoots him right in the head, and Vidi is gone, and the blood is pouring all over the table, all over the cash. And she's like, we're in a new era, boys. You're going to get what you want. And the guys took their money, and now the full Falcone regime is done. We are now entering the Gigante era.
Yeah. Great scene.
Awesome.
I didn't see that coming for Johnny Vidi, but
Did
it makes
not
sense.
see that coming at all. That was like an awesome moment.
It ran its course for him.
Yeah.
She got what she wanted out of him, and there's a great movement by her. And I like the birth of the Gigante family. Set.
Awesome.
I had a good ring to it.
Great accent too. If you hear the actress, her play, like her real voice, like so like soft spoken and subtle, and this is like big New Yorker Italian like kind of voice. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. So that's
what does Oz read this episode?
So Oz this episode is the one where he ends up kind of talking the Maroni family into meeting because he end up capturing Sal's son, and he ends up killing Sal's son and Sal's wife, Dina Rez, we'll call her. And they basically, what they do is he pours gasoline on her son. Her son runs over to her mom, hugs her.
Taped. He can't mouth taped, so he can't say like, "Mom, don't," Although I'm sure the smell of gasoline.
Like that was same thing. And then after he ends up getting what he wants, sets him on fire. They go up the fastest flame ever I've ever seen in things, and basically now it's on because Oz just killed the other head of the family's wife and kids, and
he seemed to be enjoying it. The look that he's given the burning bodies, and it's kind of like a proud moment for him, which is weird because there's times where you're like, oh man, you want Oz to succeed, but like he's the worst. You know what I mean? Like he really is like a freaking terrible guy, and this whole show is basically setting him up as a supervillain, for what's to come.
But basically, until the end, literally until the end, you are rooting for this guy. You are, even though this is bad. But it's bad. But it's like, they're a crime family. They deserve it. They've done bad things too. You know what I mean? Like, it's whatever. But it's bad. And then it ends basically with them getting the mushrooms and him taking Vic to the underground tunnels, which Oz knew a lot from his childhood, which we'll get to, and end up realizing this is a great operation to grow the mushrooms, and Oz is going to start now his empire of running Bliss.
Yeah. All right, so that brings us to the next episode, which is called Gold Summit. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at my notes. Is this the episode that you get a little bit more background on Oz, or is that 7?
7. So as a kid, that's 7. Yeah. This one is not like saying a lot, but probably like maybe the weakest, I think, of the whole season.
Yeah, I think so too.
But and I think we can get through this one kind of quickly. This one kind of culminates with Oz getting all the other smaller gangs. So there's a bunch of smaller gangs running throughout Gotham and stuff, and he ends up giving this rousing speech where he throws each of the head of the gangs a beer, and he has a beer, and the beer is called Gold something, so he calls it the Gold Summit. And he just gives this incredible speech of being like, the Maronis, the Falcones, they've wronged you. You guys aren't getting what you're worth. We need to rise up and stuff. And in order to get them on board, the families basically crack open the beer, and you hear 1 crack, 2 crack, 3 cracks, and by the end, they're all on board. And I thought that was a cool, effective tool of like getting them all on board. So,
and the way this episode ends, Sophia, was it through the process? Sophia got some awareness of Oz's mother.
Yeah, which we haven't even talked about at all. Yeah,
she's a pretty big character. Well, I mean, we'll talk about it in the next episode.
Yeah,
but the Penguin and Oz loves his mother, right? And he actually keeps her in a house away from anything. Told people that she's dead. He does not want anyone to be able to leverage her against him, doesn't want anything to happen to her. He has an interesting relationship to her, which we'll get to, but he's always been kind of keeping her away, and he had to move her, I think moved to closer to the operation. Vic's taking care of her, and what is it? Sophia met with Eve, who is basically like a hooker that Penguin's close with, got some information out of her. They had an awesome scene, awesome conversation, but this episode ends with Sophia's in the house where Vic is with Oz's mom. And that kind of leads to what the next episode is.
And she realizes that, because Oz, like you said, Oz told her she was dead. So she realized that and is like, okay, now Oz has somebody who he loves as much as I loved Alberto, and this could be how I get him. So,
Yep. So, all right. So we'll just jump ahead to episode 7. This one's called Top Hat, and this is background on Oz, right?
As a kid, unbelievable casting. Whoever that kid is that played, Kid Oz, incredible job, incredible accent. Could totally see how he ends up being, Ma, it's you and me, Ma. You just it's so good. But you learn about, because you knew Oz had 2 brothers, and you knew those 2 brothers died, but you didn't know how they died. And then you find out in this episode, he killed them. But I do want to push back a little bit. So ended up happening was they're playing flashlight tag, and they end up going in the sewers, the same sewers and tunnels that end up being the mushroom operation. And the boys, basically all they did was went down a ladder, and they knew that Oz couldn't necessarily go down a ladder easily because
he had the leg issues that we were talking about before.
Going this way,
the waddle, he had health issues.
Yeah. So when he found that the boys were kind of laughing at him, very minorly, you've done a million things worse to me growing up than what happened to Oz here. And so what he ends up doing is shutting the door to this sewer tunnel, and it's a rainstorm that night. He definitely could have stopped, told people that this was happening and that kind of stuff, but I don't know if he closed the door with the intention of I'm gonna kill you. Doesn't really matter, but
I'm sure my thought would be that, okay, he closed the door, they'll find a way out. I'm just going to delay them. But, at some point, it became, you probably should say something because, so what ended up happening is, he shut that door. They ultimately drowned. It was a very rainy night. They died. His freaking 2 brothers died. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that bad what they did to him. Again, it wasn't nice, but again, we've seen a lot worse. But, then he goes back to his mom, and it's, him and his mom, and he has, it's not it's just an unhealthy love of his mom, I would say.
Yeah.
So it's a strange relationship, but so he's with her, he's cuddling with her, he's watching their favorite show, meanwhile the brothers aren't back and she's starting to get worried. And it's just you get a sense of something's just not quite right with those. You've seen them in present day and how he takes care of her and some things going on, but you really get a sense of okay, it's fucked up.
Yeah, 100%. And their relationship is the driving force, especially these next 2 episodes. But just an awesome backstory, and this was the first moment, or even all the bad things he did, the double crossing, the talking his way out of things, all that kind of stuff. This was oh no, he's evil. That was this was a really eye-opening, you can't talk yourself out of this one. This was pretty bad. Which is what they needed to do.
Yeah, which is great. I did not think that this is going to be what happened to his brothers. You could have never guessed. I didn't necessarily think that he himself would be responsible for their deaths.
Earlier in the series, Vic asks him what happened to his brothers, and he said the city took them.
Yeah.
So you didn't know that was happening. But yeah.
And it was an interesting touch that's where he did his mushroom operation.
Yep. Yeah.
Those same tunnels. You see that same door that he closed at one point. I think towards the end of the episode it comes into play because he does ultimately get captured by Sophia's men.
Yep.
And I think that door saves his life on an explosion.
Yes, it is. Right? It is that door. So we got when it gets back when it comes back to current day and you see Sophia with Frances, who's Oz's mom, an unbelievable acting scene, 2 just powerhouses kind of going back and forth with Sophia's questioning her, Frances, who has dementia and stuff, but she was with it for the beginning and is basically my son Oz is 2 steps ahead of you. He's going to put a bullet in your pretty little skull. You don't know what you're doing. You don't scare me. Any of this kind of stuff. And then Sophia ends up bringing up the 2 boys and asks her a question of it, and the dementia sets in and she starts losing it, and Sophia realizes what she's not dealing with a well woman, fit woman.
She has flashes of normal.
Yeah.
And
anyone with dementia. Yeah.
And she has legit dementia. So
yeah.
I kind of lose track of when she's kind of in therapy with Dr. Rush, the guy from Arkham, who kind of meets up with Sophia after. We haven't really talked about him, but he plays a role in some of his interviewing of her. I think some of it happens in this episode. Some of it happens in the next episode. but they use him and his method with this red light that kind of hypnotizes the people, brings them into their past as a way to get some history. The thing I want to mention about him particularly is in episode 7, they could see, people have noticed that in his office that there is a scarecrow glove and a scarecrow mask on his desk as like a hidden thing. And people that have watched Batman before, like, Scarecrow is a famous villain that was in some of the Christopher Nolan movies and just has a long history in the comics. So there is speculation that this guy in particular will be the Scarecrow in either the future movie or future seasons of this show if they ever do it again. So I thought that was pretty cool that they had that kind of hiding back there.
Awesome Easter egg. Yeah, awesome Easter egg. So you got that, they get to dive in a little bit more with like France's history, and that's how they find out basically that Oz killed the boys. They're basically through this history and through this past.
Was it this episode or the beginning of the last episode?
It was the beginning, but it was the next episode. It was this episode, but the next episode when they have the conversation. But this is kind of like how they find out. So,
so want to just get to the finale?
One last thing, I think just one last thing about this episode is that's really I think sets the tone that Sophia is not a very good person either, because you're always kind of rooting for her and you're hoping, you're grabbing at straws here to hope that one of these people is good. Is her psychiatrist friend says, hey, your little cousin Gia, that 8-year-old that you slept with in the greenhouse, she's talking to the police and do you want me to take care of it? And Gia's like, no, I'll take care of it. And basically goes to see Gia, who's basically in a child version of Arkham. Looks like a miserable place to grow up. Absolutely, this girl who did nothing wrong other than being in a family, and Gia basically scares her and tells her, yeah, I killed them, and I would do it again because they're bad people, and you're gonna live a better life. And I went to that episode thinking like, oh, maybe Gia's gonna take her in. I mean, Sophia's gonna take Gia in or whatever. But no, what she did to Gia was pretty unforgivable. I mean, it was bad, and that kind of was like, okay, Sophia's not a good person either here. We're dealing with shit people. That's
a good point. Yeah, I mean it's kind of what they did to her. She's kind of in a way dooming her into this life. Keeping the cycle going. So yeah, that was a messed up thing. Don't get me wrong. She's not like a great person either. Again, we're all dealing with bad people here.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was important. You know what I mean? So just mention that part.
Sal Maroni stuff. Did this resolve in this episode or the next episode?
This is where. Again, Oz is so Sal Maroni finds the operation of Oz, comes in.
Sal Maroni and Sophia have teamed up at this point.
Yeah, they're partners. Yep.
Yeah. So Sal Maroni found Oz's operation, confronts him down there, and then what happens from there?
And then Sal and Oz get in this fight, pretty much going like rule it 10-9 rounds for Sal, is very much in control of the fight. And then again, Oz luck happens. Sal ends up having a heart attack while he's fighting and dies.
Yeah.
Like right there. And
it's just like an Oz thing to have happen. Like this freaking guy.
Can't get out, always. And as Sal is taking his last breath, Oz right in his face, I want you to know I beat you. I beat you. I beat you. And then he ends up shooting his dead body with a gun like 5 times.
It seemed like he actually killed him, but he was freaking getting his ass kicked.
Already dead. But yeah, so
it was such an interesting thing to see someone have a heart attack in a fight like that. I don't know that I've ever seen something like that happen in a movie. Like, it's just an interesting choice to have him have a heart attack in the middle of their fight.
They show throughout the show how angry and stressed he is. So like, I don't know if that's like, real, like you didn't know, you don't have his medical records, but like definitely like it was convenient for Oz. And then when Sophia calls Sal, thinking that she's gonna get him, Oz answers. And a showdown is coming. But basically Oz gets captured by one of Sophia's men at the end of this episode.
Does the bomb go off on the end of this episode?
Yes.
Yeah. So, at that point she has Oz's mom and sends a truck into the tunnels, and you think maybe she's in there, and he goes to the back of the truck and opens up the hatch, and there's a bomb and it blows up, and that's when he was able to get behind the door that he used to lock his brothers in, and that's ultimately what saved him from dying when his whole tunnel operation thing was kind of blown up and the whole grounds caved in and stuff.
And again, like another example, I just want to really beat this point home of like Sophia, like in order to her vengeance, in order to kill Oz and get Oz, freaking sets off a bomb and kills probably many innocent people that have nothing to do with this, ruin Crown Point. So like Sophia, you know what I mean? Like again, not a good person. So I'm just like really like let her emotions get the best of her here.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. All right, so this brings us to the finale.
Yes.
And this one's called A Great or Little Thing.
Yeah.
And at this point, Sophia has Oz, and she brings Oz to this place where his mom's at, and they're all there, and we get a little bit more flashback stuff, right? Does he get a chance to? I forget if they did this
flashback stuff with his mom talking to the lead gangster of Crown Point when he was a kid, and basically saying, "I know what Oz did. I know he killed my boys." And basically, the gangster's like, "You have one of two options. You can either nurture him. A man like this can do very well in my line of work." He says could become great things, a lot of ambition, or I could kill him, essentially. And
which is what she was going to do.
Was going to kill him. Was going to get him killed. Yeah.
So she basically dressed him up, took him out to this place, this club as a boy, and he's freaking loving it because he again has this weird situation with his mom, and he gives like this great speech to her about. I wish I had like.
Ma,
I can't
Ma, no one knows you like I know you, Ma. Ma, no one knows when you're sad.
You know, and me and you, Ma. It's like this great thing, and like I think in that moment she decides not to have him killed because the guy's there in the background. She's like, "You're gonna ride home with Rex," and you know, ultimately he was never gonna come home. But they pivoted from that plan in that moment. But like she very much acknowledged that she was gonna kill him with Oz in the room. She was like, "I know what you did to your brothers," and like she freaking let him have it.
Awesome
in that
scene. Awesome scene.
So I will say she let him have it, but only after Sophia was going to cut off her finger in front of Oz, and all she wanted Oz to do was admit that that's what he did. Like they already know that he did it. Oz knows that he did it. They're all in the room, and she wants him to just admit it, or she's going to cut off her finger with like a cigar thing. And dude, he would not admit it. I thought for sure he was going to eventually admit it. He just never acknowledged it. Like he's freaking messed up, you know, like.
And Sophia, the way Sophia is looking at him is like, you're a monster. Like I know you're a bad person, but you are a monster that you're going to let your mother's finger get chopped off by not admitting something that everyone knows. You know,
this is like
you're delusional.
Yeah, delusional. You know, and then I think after that, like she lets him have it. The mother somehow gets
yells from the chair. She's like, "I already know," and he's like, "You know what, Ma?" And he's like, "I already know that you killed them." She goes, "That's your disease talking, Ma." You know, he could not admit it, and she gets off her chair and starts going at him and just gets into him. You are the devil. I should have killed you when you were younger. And he looks devastated because this is like his life. You know what I mean? The person he loves most in his life. And then to a point where she takes a freaking bottle, and this was just, I thought, an unbelievable choice. Takes a bottle, breaks the bottle, and stabs him in the gut. And then from a filming perspective, cuts back, and it's like kid actor Oz with it stuck in there. And then when she sees what she did, she has an episode and then ends up having a stroke and collapses on the ground. And Oz then breaks out of this wooden chair with duct tape, kills beast mode, kills the men. Sophia runs away. He picks up his mom and brings her to the hospital.
Yeah, him and Vic bring her to the hospital.
Yep.
And at this point, throughout the rest of the episode, she's a vegetable. She survived the stroke.
But just like that scene was probably, and why this episode was just so. This scene was so good and was such a payoff from the whole series, from like their whole relationship to what makes the Penguin a monster and a supervillain. It was, and Sophia's reactions. It was probably my favorite scene of the whole series. So good.
It really was. And honestly, there is more through the end of the episode, like of the mom stuff. It's very much like
I want to save that for the end, though.
A central thing to this whole show, and like what makes Penguin such a bad guy, such a weird character.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a freaking incredible scene. I actually have to watch it again. But that's it though for her. She's a freaking vegetable now. She's that. stuck in the hospital bed.
But we get to that. We'll get to that point in a little bit. So now it's basically like we have a showdown between Sophia and Oz, and like season's ending, we know this is going to happen. And Sophia basically says to the other gang families, puts a bounty on. It's always this thing, and it was all we read about is like, I'm going to be leaving. I'm leaving. I'm getting away. I'm going to be flying to Italy. I'm walking away from the business. I'm like, all that. I just need this one thing to happen before I leave. And of course, that comes back and bites her, but puts a bounty on Oz's head. And whatever family can bring Oz to her and get it and kill him will then inherit the Falcone Gigante Empire.
Which she burnt down her house before, before all this happened.
Awesome scene. That was like just from a cinematic, like 3 cigarettes, goes
boom.
in, burns the whole house down. A badass with an awesome song underneath in slow motion. It's like a really cool scene.
So they bring Oz to her. They meet someplace, and then basically like all the guys kind of turn on Sophia, right? Or like certain ones do.
Well, Vic
had a little bit of a speech.
Vic gave a great speech, and basically what ended up happening was all of these families have their number 2s. Their deputy people are all people that have been looked over, and Vic somehow convinces all of these number 2s to take out the heads of these families, and there's a new era happening in Gotham with all these families, and they're going to be following Oz's lead. So Sophia, who thinks they have Oz captured, basically walks into a trap, and Oz ends up winning that battle.
Winning has Sophia, and basically just them two. He's driving her someplace, and Sophia thinks that he's gonna kill her. But what ultimately happens? He brings her outside, walks her to this place, makes her turn around. She thinks that he's gonna kill her. But she have a flashback, I think, or something. Like something happened. But then when she kind of came to, she was basically surrounded by the cops, and she was in custody at that point.
A fate far worse than death in her brain. In her mind.
Well, I will say Penguin actually coordinated this too with because he spent some time in City Hall, and he kind of wanted to go bigger than this mob boss thing and be involved in like the city stuff and kind of higher end life. And he coordinates, with the city people, like her getting arrested, and it's a big win for them. And so that's kind of connecting all that stuff. But basically, he didn't kill her. He left her. Cops got her. Sent her back to Arkham.
Yep. And everything is all going to be packed up nicely leaves him uninvolved, because with Sophia blowing up the stuff and Sal Maroni being in the rubble, it's going to make it look like these two families just going at each other. Oz had nothing to do with it. And now Oz is in position now through this councilman that he works with to now, like you said, go higher up. So what he ends up doing afterwards, Sophia's going back to Arkham. It's the worst. Oz goes to the hospital, sees his mom, basically forgets all of the conversation that was had before, and is so excited to see his mom. She's finally gonna be proud of. He won. She's gonna be proud of him, and then she goes in and she's a vegetable, like you said earlier.
She's a vegetable, and he won't even acknowledge that she stabbed him in the stomach. I think he tells Vic that it was something else. Yeah, he's like, he won't acknowledge that like she tried to kill him.
And it's a big thing, because it just kind of shows that's what he wanted. And just kind of going a little bit back earlier in the scene when his mom was having one of her dementia episodes, she looked at him and basically said, "Do not let me become a vegetable. The last thing I want to do, please kill me, or it was something, let me die before. I do not want to be a vegetable." And he reluctantly says yes. And when she becomes a vegetable, he does not honor that.
Does not do that
at all.
I want to get to that last scene in a second, but I did want to mention one more thing about Sophia. The last time we see her, she's in Arkham, and Dr. Rush is back working at Arkham.
He has no problem getting a job. At Arkham.
Guy's got a great resume, freaking hiring him right back.
They call some recommendations, the referrals. We're good. We're strong.
Yeah, we've been up to the past few months or years. Don't worry about it. And so he's back, dealing directly with Sophia, but he delivers her a letter from her half sister, who people may know is Catwoman,
Selena Kyle. Yep.
Selena Kyle. So the envelope's black. We don't know what the letter says, but Selena Kyle played a role in the Batman movie. Presumably she'll be in the next Batman movie. Like, it making a nice connection there. So we'll kind of see where that goes. But that's kind of putting a wrap on Sophia for the whole season. That's where we leave her before we go to that last scene.
absolute second to last scene. Now there's two big ones left. Is now. Well, now they go. Now Vic.
Two freaking big scenes. Yeah,
it's incredible.
Talk about the next one before the very, very last one.
So now, and this is just where it's so devastating, and you knew it was like the whole show. They're building up Vic as this just guy who lost his family, who looks up to Oz so much, literally, like would do anything for Oz. He absolutely loved him. And in this last scene, Oz is so vulnerable. He can't believe the situation with his mother. And Vic talks to him and basically is like, calls him family. You have me. She's proud of you. And it's this incredible, incredible touching scene. And Oz basically says to Vic, where I'm going, I cannot take you with me. Meaning whether his aspirations of mayor, he can have no connections to the street. And ends up choking out Vic. And Vic did not see it coming at all. And poor Vic is dead in the full circle of the Penguin becoming a villain and, a person you no longer can root for ever has come close. And poor Vic is, and then when Vic is dead, laying there, he does the absolute worst thing ever is he takes Vic's wallet, takes out the freaking, I don't know, $15 worth of cash in his wallet, puts it in his pocket, takes out his license, and throws his license in the water. So basically, if the authorities come, they don't know who he is. Vic has no family. Vic's girlfriend is in California. Vic basically dies a nobody. And
he's
sad
multiple times.
Whew.
Yeah. That sucks. You're great character, man. Like, I don't know that Vic actually has any spot in comic history. I think he was created just for the TV show, but he's a freaking great character.
Great character, and really, really well done. Just an awesome scene, and your heart breaks for that because you've had a feeling that's where it was going, but you're like, there's no way he's going to do it. And sure as hell, he did, and boom. Flashback, next scene is maybe a little bit set in the future, and if you want to go and dive into that one, that last scene is something that has stuck with me for ever since watching it.
So what I remember of the Penguin, outside of like Danny DeVito playing him in some of those movies, which is a little bit weird version of him, is more of like an upper class version of the Penguin with a suit on, a monocle, a top hat, like different than the way he's portrayed most of the way of this show. Up until the last scene where you see him, he finally has that penthouse. He's dressed up in like a very nice suit, got a top hat. He's like, this is the Penguin that we've been kind of waiting for. And he's finally to that next level. So he goes up to the top floor and he has his mom in her bed, did not follow her wishes. She is very much a vegetable, but she's like facing out the window and he's dancing with that girl.
Before we get to the dance thing, with the mom though, I thought this was, again, just shows him where she's facing out the window and a single tear comes down her eyes. And he goes, I know, Ma. Isn't it beautiful? We did it. And that is not why she's crying at all. But in his brain, he's like, she's so proud of me. I did it. And she is just literally the worst thing that could happen to her ever. Yeah, she's a vegetable.
Yeah, vegetable.
Can't do anything. Who knows how responsive she is? But in his brain, he thinks that. So then that happens, and he goes upstairs or upstairs or whatever, and if you want to go in.
Yeah, Eve is there. We haven't talked much about her, but she plays a decent role. That's like his girl, and how much
he pays her. Yeah.
What? Pays her. Yeah. Pays her. Yeah. It's there seems to be some type of relationship, but it's ultimately a paid relationship, and she's dressed as his mother, and it's kind of recreating that night in the club where he's dressed up and she's dressed up, and he's basically having her like say things like she's her mom, his mom.
Say you're proud. Say you're proud.
Say you're proud of me. And like,
you love me.
Yeah. Yep. And she's saying it. She's feeding into it. And the guy's a freaking psychopath. And they're just dancing. And that's ultimately. And I'm not going to forget the last thing.
No, I know. Well, so then the best thing, and it's so good. They're listening to that same song that his mom and him danced to when she was a little boy. And he's saying all these things. And he looks like almost like I had a hard day at the office. And you're telling me these things. And he's like, tell me you're proud of me. He goes, I'm proud of you, baby. He goes, tell me you love me. And she goes, oh, I love you, baby. He goes, tell me I won. And she goes, you won. The city's yours. Ain't nothing that can stop you now. And the freaking pans
out to the sky, the skyline, and you see the freaking bat symbol up in the air.
Boom.
Such a freaking great ending to that show.
Awesome. There is not one reference to Batman or Bruce Wayne the whole damn show. And that last thing, she's like, ain't nothing can stop you now. And then pan out, and then the bat signal goes up. And I'm like, the Batman 2 could be 5 hours long, and I would go see it in a second, in a sitting. It was so good.
Great ending. Like, dude, it was actually fun kind of rehashing all of those episodes, because dude, every episode's freaking great, man. Like, I mean, yeah, there's some that are weaker than others, some that are stronger than others, but that's a freaking awesome 8 episode miniseries, season of TV, however you want to say it. Like, dude, freaking bravo.
I'm anxious to see, some of the episodes, like episode 4 and the finale, were some of the highest rated episodes. I'm anxious to see when award season comes around if this is considered a miniseries or a show. I don't know how, at least, Sophia and Colin Farrell or whatever don't win for this. He's just, it's so good. It's so well done. They did a great job. There is talk about a season 2. We're going to see. But Matt Reeves has done a great job, building now this universe in Gotham and making you really care. And it makes me wish they could do this for all kinds of villains. The blueprint is this. Like, this is the blueprint. If they did this for other things too, I think it's a great era that we could be going into.
Yeah, Matt Reeves has done a hell of a job. Look forward to the Batman 2 coming out. I don't think it's coming out.
Oh,
well, 2026.
I think. Well, I don't even know if they've started filming. I don't think they even started filming yet. So they're probably still working out the script.
It's a couple years away from now. So
yeah.
What do you think this show, and I guess this version of Batman, does to Christopher Nolan's version of the Batman? Does it lessen it? Because I thought, like, that is the definitive Batman universe. But then you have this, and it's like, man, maybe this is, like, better. I don't know.
It's just, I think we're in an era now where we had our superhero phase of, between Marvel and then, like, the Dark Knight. Because it was like, Marvel was, like, over the top with, like, the CGI and the flying around and that kind of stuff. The Dark Knight was a more grounded version of this. Well, this is even a more grounded version of the Dark Knight. And it's just such more of a realism type. I keep saying that word because, like, in the Batman, like, Robert Pattinson's not freaking flying around. You know what I mean? And, like, taking out people. It's like more of a street level thing. And I think that's kind of a way to tell the story, to make the Penguin, who people think of as, like, Danny DeVito back in the Tim Burton things, like a real, like, you can absolutely see this evolution. And I don't think it lessens it. I think it's two separate things of universe, and I'm excited about it.
Same here. All right, pal. Well, that's probably a good way to wrap it up at this point. Solid hour and 10-minute pod on the Penguin. Is there anything else you want to mention, or just?
No, just I hope people watch it. I hope people can get past, like, if they don't like superheroes and it's the thinking the Penguin, like, they think of Danny DeVito or they think of Batman. This is just an incredible storytelling TV show on itself. It's incredible.
Loved it, dude. Glad we were able to do an episode dedicated to it. I'll